The situation in Kupiansk is dire for Russia's forces. Fewer than 100 of its soldiers remain in the city mere weeks after Vladimir Putin's grand proclamation of Kupiansk's capture. Ukraine has destroyed all of the occupiers and now reportedly has just 100 or so left to take out to fully liberate the city. As for Russia, it can't do anything but send more of its soldiers to their deaths. In a nightmare scenario for Putin, Ukraine has deployed a robot army to create a kill zone near Kupiansk. Russia kicked off January 20th with several desperate attempts to regain some sort of foothold in or around Kupiansk, as it tries to reverse the damage that Ukraine has done to its forces since December. To the north of Kupiansk, Russia launched assaults against the settlement of Holubivka. East of Kupiansk, there were attacks toward Petropavlivka, Podoli, and Kucherivka. Russia also attempted to advance toward the city from the southeast, where its forces had tried to gain footholds in the settlements of Pishane, Stepova, Novoselivka, and Kurilivka. Encirclement of Kupiansk is clearly Russia's goal. However, the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, delivers a flat verdict on what Putin had hoped would be a busy and successful January 20th. Though Russia's forces continued offensive operations, they did not advance. The obvious question is why, and the answer is that Ukraine has created kill zones around Kupiansk that are so massive that Russia's soldiers can't get through the seemingly never-ending seas of drones they need to get past if they're to launch anything resembling effective assaults in the first place. Those drones form the Kupiansk kill zone. And as you'll discover soon, they may just provide the answer to Ukraine's need to sustain its defense with as few losses as possible. In a January 21st report, the New Voice of Ukraine gives a little insight into the kill zone that Ukraine has built around Kupiansk. It's effectively a wall of first-person view or FPV drones that stretches up to 25 kilometers or around 15 miles from the Kupiansk combat lines. Those drones are constantly on the prowl. With the aid of reconnaissance drones, Ukraine's FPV drones are on seek-and-destroy missions that are massively restricting Russian infantry movement and often destroying the few vehicles that Russia sends in the Kupiansk direction long before they reach the types of places where Russia could actually use them in its assaults. Right now, the outlet says, Russia's movement and maneuvering have been restricted to within a single kilometer, which is bad news for Putin. Restricted forces become easy targets. Whether they're in the kill zones or not, Russia's wannabe Kupiansk occupiers are in massive danger. At least those who remain are still in danger. Most are already dead. In its own report on the Kupiansk kill zone, Military says that it's the Ukrainian unit dubbed Orion that has set up the near-impenetrable robot army with which Russia now has to tangle daily. That robot army is lethal. Military says that the kill zones are responsible for destroying up to 88% of the Russian occupiers before they even reach their intended positions. The outlet also reports on the types of drones that Ukraine is using in the Kupiansk kill zone. Leleka reconnaissance drones are constantly in the air, searching for any sign of Russian movement. FPV drones and Mavic drones are primed and waiting, loitering around until a target is located. There are even ground robots in operation, though it's unclear whether they're serving logistical purposes or if they're conducting attacks on Russian positions. It may well be the latter. A little under 2 weeks ago, this very channel reported on Ukraine's innovative use of a ground robot that traveled over 20 kilometers, or about 12.4 miles of terrain, to deliver an explosive payload of 12 anti-tank mines to a Russian position. You can find out more about the devastating effects of that operation in our video. And then imagine what a robot like that could do to any entrenched Russian soldiers who are attempting to plan an assault near Kupiansk. It wouldn't be pretty. And it would be one more thing for Russia's Kupiansk invaders to worry about, as aerial drones constantly buzz overhead. A story told by Military offers the perfect example of what awaits any Russian forces who attempt to navigate the Kupiansk kill zone. The outlet tells the tale of a captured Russian soldier who goes by the call sign Begunok. His job was to guide groups of soldiers through Ukraine's kill zone so they could launch their assaults. You have to wonder which commander Begunok angered to earn this suicidal task, and yet Begunok has survived his trips, all 3 of them. As for the soldiers that he attempted to guide, all were destroyed to the last man, leaving Begunok the last soldier standing on all 3 of his attempts. Finally, Begunok waved the white flag and surrendered to one of Ukraine's drones. And why wouldn't he? As Military says, Ukraine's use of such a wide variety of drones near Kupiansk means that most Russians who try to infiltrate are located. This allows space surveillance without the constant presence of people, Military says of the Kupiansk kill zone, before adding, in a typical scenario, up to 5 FPV drones and sometimes even up to 12 operate on one target. One drone would be bad enough. A dozen, all of which fly faster than a soldier can run while carrying explosive payloads, add up to a death sentence. They also add up to a solution to a problem that Ukraine experienced in the Kupiansk sector several months before the kill zone was developed. And an officer of the Orion unit named Vladislav Zolotarov explained all to Military. "We understood that the problem was not the number of people or equipment. We had to take away the enemy's very ability to move and gain a foothold," Zolotarov says. And it's really that simple. An enemy who can't gain a foothold also can't push forward, and if they can't push forward, all they can do is hopelessly wander as Ukraine's drones search. What Ukraine has here is a dedicated drone wall that demolishes Russia's forces. And as we said earlier, these walls may well be the answer to Ukraine's challenge of dealing as much damage to Russia as possible while keeping its soldiers out of harm's way. According to ISW's assessment, Ukraine now has an opportunity to deny Russian advances and even enable counterattacks of its own, by replicating the robot army strategy that it's used in Kupiansk across the entire front line. This would be a game changer, though it would also mean that Ukraine needs enough drones, along with operators to pilot them, to work across a front line that now stretches about 1,250 kilometers, or roughly 800 miles. That's a lot of drones, but Ukraine may just have enough to make it happen, especially if it focuses mostly on the sectors where Russia's attacks are at their most intense. The ISW adds that replication could be complemented by an increase in kill zone depth. Ukraine could significantly degrade the effectiveness of Russian infiltration tactics if Ukrainian forces deny Russian forces from operating vehicles within 50 kilometers of the front line, thereby forcing the Russian infantry to infiltrate greater and untenable distances on foot, the think tank suggests. A big ask, perhaps. But there is some evidence that Ukraine has gotten ahead of the ISW assessment and has started to implement its kill zones in locations other than Kupiansk. Euromaidan Press highlighted this in a December 24th report, where it said that these zones now cover not only the Kupiansk sector, but also the embattled regions of Pokrovsk and Dobropilya. Across all of these regions, Ukraine is combining the intense drone activity that we've already covered with air and artillery strikes that buffet Russia's soldiers and equipment on both sides of the front lines. Extension is already happening, as the spokesman of Ukraine's National Guard, Ruslan Mozychuk, explains. A kill zone is not just an area between our and Russian positions. It can extend beyond the defensive line, and it must be calculated in both directions. This deepening is happening, in part, because Russia is also creating drone-filled kill zones to prevent Ukraine's counterattacks. However, logically speaking, these types of zones are more important to Ukraine than they are to Russia. Yes, Russia wants to prevent Ukraine from reclaiming territory that Russian troops have occupied, but ultimately, Russia is the attacking force in the conflict. And it's Putin, not Zelensky, who is ordering his soldiers to charge mindlessly toward Ukraine's defenses and straight into the kill zones. With their robot armies, Ukraine's soldiers can operate in small units behind their kill zones, because they know that the few Russian troops that make it through will be easier to counter. They've only just managed to survive a gauntlet of drones by the skin of their collective teeth, only to enter territory where Ukraine's soldiers are actively looking for them. For Ukraine, Russia's kill zones are also dangerous, but Ukraine is also more deliberate than Russia with its assaults, and it tends to only launch them when it knows that it has a high chance of success. For instance, the arrival of mid-range drones into Ukraine will soon be very important for dealing with Russia's kill zones. The likes of Ukraine's Bulava and Ram-2X drones can travel distances of up to 100 kilometers or 62.1 miles. If a Russian drone operator's headquarters is identified, those types of drones can shut these types of combat zones down, clearing the way for Ukraine's troops to launch their counterattacks. Still, it's defense where Ukraine's drone walls are important. And its priority now, especially if it intends to continue the expansion that the ISW says could prove so important, is to ensure that it has as many drones as possible. Again, Ukraine seems to be ahead of the curve here. In terms of pure numbers, Ukraine has poured billions of dollars into making and acquiring short-range drones that it can use to fill its kill zones. Kyiv Independent reported that Ukraine was on track to receive around 3 million drones by the end of 2025. That's according to former Ukrainian Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal. He pointed out that this attainment of 3 million drones represented almost 2.5 times more drones than Ukraine built or purchased by the end of 2024. Ukraine has built and bought millions of drones for a reason, and the kill zones might just be that reason. However, Ukraine could always use more, and on January 21st, the Straits Times reported that more is exactly what it's going to get. According to the country's new defense minister, Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine intends to rely heavily on its drones as a tool of asymmetric warfare that it will use as part of an attritional strategy designed to force Russia to bring an end to the war. Keep watching and you'll discover the shocking main goal of this strategy. As for drones, Fedorov adds that he will institute a push to replace Ukraine's Chinese-made Mavic drones with domestically produced models. This is a smart move. The less Ukraine has to rely on imported weapons, especially those that come from a nation that is also supplying Russia, the more sustainable its defense efforts become. Ukraine is already working on a local version of the Mavic that has the same camera and a longer flight range, and testing of that new drone may begin as soon as this month. Ukraine is working fast and at scale, and if Fedorov's new tech-focused approach to the country's defense is executed as well as it needs to be, the Kupiansk kill zone may soon be replicated across the entire country. We've talked a lot about kill zones and what they are in terms of being no man's lands that are filled with drones. But beyond this basic understanding, it's worth understanding the major issues that Ukraine's robot army creates for Russia as it tries to sustain the brutal assaults it needs to complete in order for Putin to grab more territory. What kill zones do, perhaps better than any other strategy that Ukraine has, is turn massive swathes of territory into traps for Russia's forces. Though drones are the headline weapons used in these kill zones, they actually involve a lot more than the aerial nemesis that has caused so much damage to Putin's ambition to rule Ukraine. United 24 media demonstrated that in a piece where it took us inside a Ukrainian kill zone. Layered defense using the terrain to the advantage of Ukraine is the key. Let's step into the shoes of a Russian soldier for a moment. Deployed into a kill zone, you already know that drones fly overhead. You can hear the faint buzzing at times, but those drones hide among the trees and are often just out of sight. For all you know, a reconnaissance drone may already have you in its sights, and Ukraine's operators are preparing an FPV drone ambush somewhere deeper into the territory you've been tasked with taking. Filled with fear, you push on. But that's far from easy. You likely don't have any armor, such as a tank or armored vehicle. That armor would almost be pointless as Ukraine packs its kill zones with mines, dragon's teeth, and anti-tank ditches to slow these types of vehicles down. As you inch forward, you may even see some of the burnt-out husks of vehicles that have attempted to cross the kill zone before. But you don't have time to worry about that. There are also massive stretches of barbed wire placed to slow down soldiers who are on foot. Hidden in the ground are networks of thin barbed wire named plutanka that are barely visible but are more than enough to shred through your feet and ankles if you step onto them. You've also heard about the tunnels built into these kill zones from which Ukraine's soldiers can watch or ambush you as you attempt to push on. This array of fortifications is navigable. As long as you're careful, you can work your way around them and find some clear passages in the kill zones. But what you don't realize is that these are all passages that Ukraine intends you to find. Forced into narrow routes, you find yourself surrounded by mines and barbed wire. There's no turning back now. And that's when you hear the telltale buzz. An FPV drone is bearing down, revealing that Ukraine has had its eyes on you all along. Maybe you get lucky and somehow avoid or shoot down the drone, but that doesn't matter. More will come. You may even be dealing with several at the same time. There can only be one winner, and it won't be you. This is what a kill zone is, and it's clear that drones are just a piece of a larger puzzle from United 24 Media's report. Zoom back to Kupiansk, and you now understand why the hellscapes that Ukraine has created around that city are destroying up to 88% of Russia's forces before they ever have a chance to launch their assaults. As Politico puts it, the result is a grey area of chaos stretching some 20 kilometers from the front, where drones hunt for soldiers. The wounded are left to die because it's so difficult to evacuate them, and supplies of ammunition, food and water are almost impossible to move up to the fighting troops. Russia is attempting to adapt to the kill zones. In a January 16th article, Forbes writer Vikram Mittal noted that one of the biggest benefits of Ukraine's kill zones is the disruption that they cause to Russia's operations. Stalemates result from Russia's soldiers attempting to push forward, only to be destroyed. Russia has increased its use of ground robots to counter the kill zones, though they're currently limited to ferrying supplies and occasionally placing satchel charges on Ukrainian positions, if they can reach them. Russia is also sending increasingly smaller units, with as few as 5 soldiers, in an attempt to bypass the kill zones. This isn't the best strategy. Even if one of these tiny units makes it through to a city like Kupiansk, all it can do after is entrench itself and hope that reinforcements come before Ukraine finds them. Do you remember how we said that there were only around 100 soldiers left in Kupiansk at the beginning of the video? This type of strategy is how Russia has ended up at that point. But above all else, the goal of Ukraine's kill zones is attrition in manpower, equipment, and money. The Atlantic Council highlighted this in a January 15th article where it said that Ukraine has invested so heavily into upgrading defenses across the entire front line that it will use to continue the stalemate while it destroys Russia's soldiers in the kill zones. Strengthening Ukraine's fortifications and addressing manpower shortages will be among the top priorities for incoming Ukrainian Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov, who took up his post this week. Fedorov made his name in government as Minister of Digital Transformation, the outlet says. It's right, and Fedorov has set a pretty bold target for Ukraine's defenders to reach as he focuses on restructuring Ukraine's defense ministry. After explaining that his first objective is to reform the ministry he now leads to ensure that it can manage itself and Ukraine's military effectively, Fedorov set his goal for Ukraine's drone operators in 2026. The second strategic objective is to kill 50,000 Russians per month. Last month, 35,000 were killed. All these losses were verified on video. If we reach 50,000, we'll see what happens to the enemy. They view people as a resource, and shortages are already evident, Ukraine's new defense minister revealed. The kill zones are already contributing massively to the Russian casualty rate. The type of expansion that the ISW recommends is paired with a Ukrainian defense ministry that further emphasizes the use of drones. Anything is possible for Ukraine. After all, Ukraine now controls 90% of Kupiansk and is achieving a 27-to-1 casualty rate against Russia. That city may show Putin what awaits his forces in the future as the kill zones expand. Fedorov's 50,000 monthly goal is lofty, but it's far from unachievable. Ukraine has the drones and the technological know-how to make it happen, as you'll discover if you check out our video covering Fedorov's proposed reforms to Ukraine's defense ministry. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more videos examining Ukraine's ever-evolving tactics in its war against Russia. And thank you as always for watching.